2% or 3%? That is the question that we have in front of us. Why? Well, because that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference as to what we think is actually happening in this market. Okay, so what are we talking about? Let's go into greater detail as to what we're talking about. And essentially, what has happened, as you know, there was a Fed discussion, there was a Fed-led discussion, and there was a decision. And basically, the Fed decided to keep the rates the way they were. In itself, it's okay. It's just obviously, as we all know by now, Trump definitely wants lower rates. Is he going to get those rates? Is he going to get those lower rates? And this is what we need to talk about. This is an important topic. This is an important topic because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Tremendous amount of information. And this is what you need this channel for. You need this channel because what we want to do is we want to explain to you what is really going on. Okay? For example, I would say to you that most of the time you are being swayed one way or the other. Okay? And how do you know what's going on if you don't know the facts? And that's very important. So the bottom line is this. The bottom line is that, first of all, you should know that, so let's understand, how many people are at the Fed, because that's extremely important. And it's very important because it basically tells you and explains to you what they're going to be doing. And what we found is Federal Reserve Governor Adriana Coger announced that she will resign effective August 8th. So here we are. Now this is important information for you. This is very important information for you because it will dictate whether or not what's going to happen to rates. And obviously, if you're going to borrow some money, if you're going to buy a car, and it also impacts the potential for the rates, for the job, correct? So what we want to do is we want to understand what is happening, okay? And what's going on right now, if you look at it, she decided to resign on August 8th. That's interesting. And why is she leaving? She's leaving because she's returning to academia. Now, the reason I want to explain to you what's going on here is because you need to understand the way these people vote, right? So essentially what you have, you've got 12 voting members. I want my subscribers to understand what's happening. You have 12 voting members, and you have one chair, 6 governors, 4 president, and 1 New York president. So what's happening right now, as we all know, there were actually 2 dissents, right, within the governors. But then, and this is why it's important, this is why, and I think I said that in one of my previous live, that there is pressure being applied on these people. Forget Powell. We know that he's being pressured, but also the president, the governors themselves, and there are 6 of them. Right now, 3 of them have been appointed by Biden, 2 by Trump, and guess what? One of them, and one of them is actually leaving. Federal Reserve Governor Adriana Coger announced that she will resign effective August 8th, several months ahead of a term schedule that ends in January 2026. She plans to return to Georgetown this fall. Okay, well, she's quitting. Well, hold on. And this is where analytics comes in, is very important, because you need to know the facts. Well, she's leaving. Why do I care? You care because now half of the governors are for, quote unquote, for Biden, 2 are, quote unquote, for Trump. But now she's leaving, so obviously Trump this week is going to appoint another governor. And obviously he's not going to appoint a governor. That's not going to go his way. although technically they should do their fiduciary duty and they should do what they think is right. Okay. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you understand what's happening, because otherwise it gets confusing. And what she's doing basically is she was a bit of a, not of a dove, but she was a bit of she was a bit of you know she's basically returning to academia, okay, and it's a place that is considered academic home. She cited as a deeply meaningful opportunity, though did not specifically further personal reasons. So not only is she leaving, and that's one thing, but also what she's doing, she did not vote. She did not vote. So what that means, well, technically, on the day of the voting, for some reason, hold on. So a resignation removes a labor-focused, data-driven voice from the Fed. The timing right after a key open market committee, which she did not attend. She did not attend, citing personal reasons. I mean, come on. Something is going on at the Fed. Something is definitely going on at the Fed. Because don't forget, she was supposed to stay until January of 2026. So she didn't have to quit now. She could have waited until January. And if she wants to go into academia, frankly, she didn't have to start the fall season. She could have started the spring season. But she did not want to do that. What she did instead, she said, you know what, not only am I not voting today, but also I'm leaving. Clear sign that there's something going on at the Fed. Now, this is important for you to understand, because what I'm noting more and more when you look at the news and you look at information for you subscribers, what's happening, it becomes difficult for you to know what's happening. Why? Because you don't have all the information, and it's important information to have. They do not really tell you what's going on, or at least the context, right? So depending if you're for Trump or against Trump, right? They say, well, she decided to leave, but there's something going on, obviously. Now, this is important because if she's pressured, that means that the next meeting that's going to be sometime in November, in August, you're going to have 3 Fed chair one way, right? That's basically been Fed governor, I'm sorry, that have been basically appointed by Biden. And you've got 3 that have been 2 by Trump, and obviously he's going to get, so it's going to be 3 and 3 in terms of Fed chair, right? Now, then of course you've got the Fed chair. He's going to be voting, he's a Biden appointee. Well, he's not a Biden appointee, but obviously he doesn't like Trump anymore, so this is over. And obviously what's going to happen is, in terms of the presidents, there are 4 presidents. It would appear, and this is the purpose of this call, is that one of these people has have dissented. Because there are 4 presidents, and they're also voting presidents, Fed presidents from the regional presidents. And so if she did not vote, what did they do? Well, we won't know exactly what happened until the minutes come out. But out of these presidents, hey, Ari, how are you from India? This is going to be important for you from India, because we're going to do a video on what's happening between Trump and Modi. And Modi is really upset at what's happening with Trump. But we'll talk about this in a few minutes. I'll bring this up. But basically, you've got 4 voting members that are the presidents, the governors, not the governor, the Fed presidents, local presidents of the Boston, the Boston Fed, the St. Louis, the Kansas, Chicago, it would appear that Austin Galsby, who is a dove, he might have dissented as well. This is huge. And the reason this is huge is because, and that's a trend that we have to be, and this is what you need to be concerned about, is there's never been more than one. Well, the last time there were two dissenting, it was 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Then they dissented. And now you might have had another one, which we'll find out in the August memo to be released by the Fed. But also, we might be in the process of having a fourth one. I mean, you could almost say that the fact that she didn't vote for personal reason, that's a dissent probably on its own, okay? But in addition to that, there may have been another guy, a fourth one, in Austin Goldsby, the Chicago Fed president. And do you know when the last time that we had more than 3 dissent? And this is the concern that I have. The last time we had so many dissent were there have never been 3 dissenting votes from the Board of Governors in a single FOMC rate decision, at least not in the early 90s. Okay. And more than that, during the 1980s, dissenting votes, mainly from the Board of Governors, were relatively common, especially under Fed Chair Paul Volcker. Now, the reason why you need to know about Paul Volcker is because during that time, there were a huge amount of inflation. And people were very concerned about what to do, what not to do, what it means, what it doesn't mean. It was an issue, okay? And it was a big issue because you had a lot of inflation. And guess what we're talking about right now? Because right now, what's happening with Trump, and please listen to me on this one, what's going on with Trump right now is the concern is that we might have inflation. And they're telling you there's inflation. There's no inflation. There's inflation, unemployment. You don't know where to look, what's going on, what to decide. But at the end of the day, you know, it feels like we're in this environment from the 80s again, because now you have some dissenting. And whenever there's dissenting, now you could say, well, maybe they don't know what's happening or they're being pressured. Maybe there's uncertainty or they're being pressured. And this is where you have to be very careful, because what they're going to do, because there's a split, it's more and more of a split, they're going to tell you, well, the reason there is a split is because they are being swayed, right? They are being swayed by Trump. Okay. Or you could say, well, there's a split because, there's uncertainty. We're not so sure what's happening. Maybe Trump might be right. Doesn't necessarily mean that, you know what I mean? So for you, it's important to understand that, because what's going to happen is you need to know, well, I mean, what's going to happen to my job? Is there a problem with this economy? Is there an actual problem with the economy? Well, the latest numbers, and to make things even more confusing, I will tell you before I talk to you about what's happening with employment and where the jobs are. The lady from the lady from BLS actually got fired. She got fired. And the reason she got fired is because Trump basically said that these numbers are totally unreliable, and therefore I don't believe in them. Well, I will tell you this: what's going on right now is a bit problematic. It is a bit problematic because we are concerned that unemployment is on its way down, that the economy is slowing down. Is this what's really happening? Do we really have that type of problem? Not so sure. I am not so sure, because if you were to look, for example, at the latest numbers from BLS, you're going to realize that why do we have so many uncertainty in the numbers? What is going on with BLS, right? What have been the revisions recently? What have the latest BLS revisions been? And you may like Trump, you may not like Trump, but I will tell you one thing. In 2025, there was the largest amount of revision. Now, you need to understand that the Bureau of Statistics, when they report those numbers, basically these are surveys. They ask, hey, did you lose your job? Hey, what are you doing? What's going on? So you're trying to figure out, these are surveys. And then based on the survey, you extrapolate what the numbers are, right? So you figure, wait, what's going on? What are the numbers? Where are we? The thing is, coincidentally, there's been a huge amount of revision in 2025, right? For example, in May 2025, they reported 144,000 jobs. Actually, the number is not 144, it's 19,000. Okay? And in June, we reported 147,000. Actually, it's not 140, it's 14,000. And in July, we added only 73,000. So, I mean, if you're Trump, you've got to wonder what's going on. No, and this is, again, this is where you have to be careful, right? Because if you are on the Trump side, you're going to say this woman is ridiculous. She's lying and she's giving the wrong number. If you're on the other side, if you're against Trump, you're saying, wow, you're attacking the integrity. We're losing control. This is dictatorships. John said that the first 2 years are going to be tough because change, especially a massive scale, we will get over this massive hump. And go big, making a living every day will be working. Well, that's what you got to do. Change is pain. Exactly. So what's going on, right? And my subscriber, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because what we'll do, we're coming up with topics every day, but not just to report the news, but really to understand what's happening, what they're doing, and what's happening, and what they're not doing, and what they're telling you, because it impacts you. It will impact you. I mean, do you want to know if rates are going to go low or not? Because if you're in the process of buying a car, you're in the process of borrowing some money, you want to know what's going to happen. You want to know these things because it's impacting you. And then, most importantly, you want to know, is there going to be a recession coming? Because I'm hearing lots of things about the tariffs. I'm saying, the inflation is coming, and Trump is doing this, and Trump is doing that. I'm not one or the other. I'm trying to figure out. I am from Louisiana, John. I had to learn many skills to support. Yes, John is right. And speaking of skills, what's happening? So I'm gonna tell you two things, because John brought up a good point, and I want to talk about two things. The first thing I'm going to tell you is what's going on with employment, so you have an understanding as what's really happening. And let me tell you about AI and the skills. And he's got a good point. First of all, you need to understand that right now, in terms of AI, there's a lot of jobs cut. The AI job cuts are accelerating, my friends. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, even as business leaders claim they're redesigning jobs rather than cutting them, the headline tells another story. It's not just Microsoft and Intel, that are among a host of companies announcing thousands of layoffs linked to AI. What I mean by linked to AI is because essentially AI does a lot of these things that basically used to be done by people, but now AI could do it. So what you want to do, if you're looking for a job or you have a job currently, take a look at your job, like John did, and say, okay, can ChatGPT or whatever, could they replace my job? That's important because it will happen. And that's what's happening with Intel and Microsoft. They were sent that they were regrettable choices. Now executive considers them a sign of progress. They basically, in fact, what's happening, the sad part is they're saying, the reason this is happening, it means that we're proactive. That this guy was, or this woman was there, and what she was doing, she was reading all the documents and finding out whether or not this made sense or not. Now, all we do, we take the documents, we feed it into ChatGPT or into Grok or into Gemini, and it will tell us whether or not it makes sense or not. And obviously, if it doesn't make sense, then they let you go. So you have to, and this is where this channel is important, because it tells you, okay, what's really going on. I'm not here to create a drama for Trump, against Trump. I'm here to clear up, the disinformation that exists, because when you look at everything around, there is disinformation. And the reason there's disinformation is because they're mostly not concerned about you. They want you to watch what they're producing, and if they know that you don't like Trump, so what they're going to do, they're going to tell you things that are not good. So you say, "That's right, I hate Trump." Hey, that's right, Trump is no good. But frankly, if you look at the BLS number, quite frankly, you will see that there's a lot of mistakes being made there. Now, is it purely coincidental? I mean, how do you know? The point is that these are strange numbers that happen to be this year when he's trying to get things done. We shall see ultimately what happens, right? But basically, back to the AI, basically, OpenAI, for example, is predicting that the eventual rise of a one person by 1 billion, that may be still far-fetched, but is undeniable large language model already reshaping white-collar works. I mean, you could have one person running everything. While new jobs are being created in the AI age and some workers redeploy, a lot of positions will be eliminated. I learned, used it most of my life. Yes. Right. So advice for you, my subscribers. Take a look at your job, because it's happening. Right? It is clear that hiring quotas have dropped off a cliff and almost daily. And you know what? And be careful. I'm not saying, well, let me learn how to be a programmer. No. Doesn't mean that the so-called difficult jobs are becoming are safe. No. Because technically, with ChatGPT, and I work with consultants, I work with students, I know what's happening. Basically, you could ask ChatGPT to code, to program for you. So, it's more complicated than that. In fact, I would say, if you're a hairdresser, for example, your job is safe. If you're a programmer, well, I don't know. Depends what kind of programmer, what you're doing. So be careful. Fred said, I use AI for work every day. This thing, about 1 billion, is just their marketing. Opening AI loses 5 billion a year. Yes, it will eliminate probably 2 to 5. But I mean, at the end of the day, it eliminates jobs, but then it just forces you to move to a different kind of job that does that, But at least I want my subscribers to be aware, but you have to know what AI does. AI is not this thing. Go and download Gemini, for example. You could, and you have a feel for what this thing can do, and talk to it back and forth. Say, hey, is my job safe? Stupid questions like that. But you get a feel, right? It's too many jobs at once, and we're not ready for the amount of displacement. Well, yes, but younger workers should be particularly concerned about this trend. Entire rungs on the career ladder are taking a hit, undermining traditional job pathways. I will tell you for a fact that I could see a lot of students that are going into the workforce and they don't know anything about programming, so it's not even an issue. They don't even know Python and large language model, which they should. But even if you do know about it, be careful, because using ChatGPT and prompt engineering, you could literally ask it to code for you. So there's a concern. Now, to go back to the point that I was making about employment. Okay, so what's, because we heard a lot, right? This number came out of 73,000. Trump fired that woman, saying, what the heck are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. So how bad is the U.S. job report? How bad is it? Well, essentially, and obviously, the worse it is, the more likely you're going to see a rate cut. So, I mean, this rate cut is almost baked in technically, but be careful because you don't know. I mean, technically, right now the Fed, which is a discussion today, you really have the split right now is the split is about with the Fed. I think, from my calculation, you've got it's 8-4 still. 8 people on the Biden quote unquote side and 4 on the Trump side. 2 that basically said, I don't agree with you. And one of them wants to be a Fed chair. 1 that quit. So Trump is going to replace that person. And there may be the 4th, the third dissent that I'm talking about. Right? And I think it's that guy, Goldsby. Listen to his name. His name is going to pop up all over the place. Anyway, so obviously, if the economy is slowing down, then you are going to see an impact. They're going to lower rates. So what's really going on? Well, it's a quote unquote bad job report because you're only reporting 74,000 jobs. Okay, and that's low. Okay. The job report was hit a bit less bad than it looked at first. Everyone has now seen a chart where basically in the past, we've erased about 258,000 from initial readings from May and June. So not only we got the 74,000, but then also, and this is what Trump is pissed about, 258,000 jobs disappeared. And we're crying because the world is laughing at you all. Yeah, I know. Different topic, but we'll talk about it. So basically, we just lost 258,000 jobs, disappeared, and then only got 74,000 July. Hopefully, that number is correct. So if you were to look at a chart from 2023, that is the payroll trend, since December 23. Since the third quarter of 2 years ago. It's kind of, there's some bumps, but it's basically slowing down. So because of the shrinking of the workforce, which makes the break-even job even lower, the unemployment rate rose from 4.1 to 4.2. But, and this is, again, you have to decide which side you're on. But, okay, but it's only 4.2% unemployment. I'm sure there's other people from different countries, and you have more than 4% unemployment. So, yes, it's not good, but we're not on the way down, at least based on the numbers. Right? But then the industry composition of the job slowed down. It's somewhat more interesting. Okay. The reason why that number got hit a lot, and listen to me, this is important, is because most of the loss was from federal, state, and local government. So then the people on the one side will say, well, shouldn't Trump be happy? That's what he wanted. No, he's not consistent because now he's pissed because we lost jobs. But you let go of all these federal, state, and local government. But maybe that's not the idea. Maybe it's the fact that we have this huge revision back and forth. American people should invest in American people instead of other nations. We can start a whole new era in America. We can drive a Chevy instead of vehicle. Well, hold that thought because this may actually be happening. Meaning that, and I talked about that yesterday, but basically it's not so much make America great again, it's make sure you keep America relevant. Because within the next 5 to 15 years, if the U.S. doesn't do anything, and forget what Trump is saying, we're losing the ability to the U.S. at least to basically create jobs in semiconductors, healthcare, pharmaceutical product. This is slowly happening. So I don't know, you could pick Trump, pick some other guy, whatever, but you got to do something because it's slowing down. So the idea that eventually we just do it for ourselves, and frankly, the other country, such as China, they probably are, the plan, and this was my video from yesterday in terms of decoupling. They're already decoupling from the U.S. They don't really. The only thing you need the U.S. for is really to sell the stuff to the U.S. So back to the employment numbers, you lost a lot of federal workers. And they will tell you, well, what do you complain? You're basically throwing all these illegal immigrants out of the country. So obviously you're going to have left jobs, and the U.S. economy has produced 500,000 new jobs since Trump came into the White House. Half of as many as they were created the 6 months before that. So there's less job being created versus the Biden era. But out of that decline, 40% is down to lower government job creation. So it depends where you're looking at it, right? So basically, Trump is not good for job because you're losing a lot of job because of Trump. Well, maybe versus Biden, yeah, but it's also because he's letting, I'm sure maybe some of your government workers, but he's letting a lot of government workers go. Dumpsters is hammering the final nail in the coffin. At least I want my subscribers to be fully aware that what's happening and understanding the situation. And the situation is dire in a sense that there's a lot of moving pieces and we don't even know really what's going on and what is happening. That is the most important question. You need to understand what it means. And so the numbers are bad, yes, but because you lost a lot of government worker, okay, but that was the plan, remember, right? This raised the tragic and farcical possibility that the president has fired the head of, this is the BLS, as a scapegoat for the success of his own signature initiatives, which is basically reducing the number of government workers. But that's if you don't like Trump. Otherwise, you could say, no, the reason he's not firing them because of that. He's firing them because she has a tremendous amount of revisions and unusually high. And that's a fact. Now, I mean, nobody's going to go in and audit the whole thing. You can't make a decision if you don't have the accurate data. Well, right? And these are huge revisions. Now, of course, you have to understand the way they do it. These are surveys. So you go and talk to 10 people and 8 of them answers you. And then you say, well, we're going to assume that historically speaking, these are the 2 people who would do it that way. Or maybe this way. Or maybe that way. I don't know which one. And this is where it becomes, there are plenty of professionals that came forward that work in her field and said there is no way she could manipulate it because it comes from too many. So that's true too. But as you know, at the end of the day, you're responsible and you should do the best you can with what you have. And I guess they said that she has. And I don't know how many people on the right, basically came across but at least I don't know the answer, but I want you at least to know the 2 sides that you should look, and you have to decide on your own what you think is going on. I mean, unless you're statistical and you know exactly what's going on, you have to be careful because you could go either way. It could be she got fired simply because there's too many unusual, and that's a fact. Why are they opening this year? Why is this uncertainty this year? Why is this happening this year, not the year before? Or that, well, I mean, there's uncertainty in the way it's done. And a lot of people are saying, you shouldn't be firing somebody because you don't like the results, because that means that the new person is going to come in, you're going to get great results and nobody's going to trust it because now they're going to say, oh, but she is definitely going to give you, or he's definitely going to give you what you want to hear. But at least it's out there, So more on the unemployment numbers, right? So basically, the most important story in the employment number is not so much the fall in government workers. Forget that. It's that economically cyclical industries have all but stopped adding new workers. What I mean by that is essentially it's the construction, manufacturing, and yes, the people that they're deporting are also losing all their, that too, okay? But what's happening in the numbers themselves is that construction. So be careful if you're in that area. But basically, manufacturing, leisure, hospitality, transport, all of these jobs are going down. That's bad. But that is not new. That has been happening for, I think, since the beginning of the year. Well, obviously, if you're in construction, you're manufacturing, anything that goes up and down, and especially if you don't know what's happening with the tariff, you say, well, I'm not hiring anyone until I know, and that's a fact. I mean, that's the intended consequence, because you don't really know because you know that you're going to be paying those tariffs. I mean, are you going to pass it to the consumer? That is a big question that we don't know, and you can't go automatically that it's going to go down. It hasn't happened yet, but the point is that, yes, if you're in manufacturing, you're concerned. So then, that's all bad. Well, but keep in mind, we are still only at 4% unemployment, which is a very good number. 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. Let's not go too nuts about those numbers. These are good numbers. But what you should know is that also that within the numbers that are going up, right, we should know that they should leading us to the benign level interpretation of unemployment, not the spooky rate of change interpretation. And there's a lot of jobs being created in AI, obviously, in technology and in finance. See how everything ties together? Because basically what's happening is the jobs in AI and finance are going up. The job in cyclical industries, which is basically the stuff that Trump is trying to bring in back, that's going down. And that's a problem, obviously, because right now the US is 20% industrial, 80% services. So the service industry, if you're looking for a job, none enough to make up for the displacement, nowhere enough to make up for the displacement. Well, that's the thing too. Calera is right that there's a lot of moving pieces back and forth. And Trump obviously doesn't have any education system set up to try to help people deal with AI, and that's true too. I mean, having seen what's going on there, I will tell you that, okay, fine, AI. Let's start thinking about AI, but it's not like we stop everything, we scratch everything, and we start again, and get these people to work in finance, get these people to work in banking or in services, and get into AI and get them out of industrial. But be careful, and this is where it's complicated, because if you're taking the people away from industrial production, right? Because no job there. Well, who's going to make your the stuff that you have, right? And this is, I guess, that's what Trump is trying to do with the administration. At the same time, is they don't want that to happen. They want the investments in, but right now that's not what's happening. Lots and lots and lots of robots. Well, China right now, as I reported yesterday, added another 72 companies to make robots. So that comes up with 252. But I mean, China is different, right? If they want to make robots, they spend a bunch of billions of dollars and they finance a bunch of companies to make the robots. Now, who's going to be using them is a different question. And then you pay the people to use the robots, but it's artificially maintained. That's not so sure it's a good thing. So that is where you have to be very careful. That is where you need to understand where this is going, because it could go many places. And that's a concern that we all have right now. And the reason there is such concern is because we need to find out exactly what's going on with the economy, because you don't know what's happening to the economy. So what I want you to understand right now is, as far as the rates are concerned, and you should be concerned about that, and the reason why you need to be concerned about that is because it will impact, whatever you're doing next. I mean, rates are an important part. Now, this channel, what we're trying to do here always is we're trying to really understand the concepts behind, all the risks involved in the economy that we're in, and impact your job, impacts your money, impacts your, because all this, right, and impacts what it's going to impact you, obviously. And the reason it's going to impact you is because these are major shifts that we're doing. And of course, you're going to say, why do we have such a major shift? Why are we even bothering? Why can't we keep things the way they were? Pruning the waste. The reason why you can't keep the way things were is because, as I've said, unfortunately, the US is slowing down. Okay. The US ability to, for example, if you look at pharmaceutical item, 90% of all prescription dispensed in the US, and most of them are not produced domestically. We need growth. We are behind, but taking a sledgehammer, just destroying everything. Exactly. Exactly. That's the concern, is that we need to do something, right? We need to do something. But is this the right way? Meaning, do you need to take a sledgehammer and basically, talk rough to these people, fire that woman from BLS, pressure the Fed, you know, well, I don't know if she's a bot, but Ozzy, but what else could you do? She's not a bot. I don't think so. Bot don't talk like that. The thing is, what is the right way of doing it? So my goal is for you to understand. Well, I mean, this is what needs to happen. Now, is this the right way or is this the wrong way? And I will say another concept that is extremely important is that Trump, to a certain extent, but more importantly, U.S. is running out of time. The U.S. is running out of time, and Trump is running out of time even faster. So you can understand why he's all over the place, firing, talking, pushing, tugging, everything else, because this thing needs to happen very soon. Things need to happen very soon, and when I mean very soon, I believe in terms of the economy, the U.S. has about. I don't want it to make it well. Right now it's a big topic for the U.S., but it's a topic for the world. But I believe let's double check the latest. But how many years before industrial production in the U.S. Becomes irrelevant, right? That's a question. And I believe that not so much is going to be actually become irrelevant, but there is a decline. And realistically, we're talking, it means they're no longer competing globally, right? So manufacturing, for example, manufacturing share of the GDP was 21% of the 80, now it's about 10%. Industrial job was 25%, now it's 8%. So definitely that share is dropping very very fast. I mean, for example, when it comes to the energy sector, we're still strong. The U.S. is still strong. Defense manufacturing, aerospace. But when it comes to pharma, when it comes to chips, that's you losing that battle. And the U.S. pharmaceutical market is projected to grow, but unfortunately, I mean, basically, it's You have maybe 5 to 10 years, and then you become irrelevant. And now, as far as stable coin is concerned, and all these things tied to the dollar, what's happening there? And thanks for that question, Calera. Is well, what's happening there is that's tied to one of the risks that I have for this channel, right? Because I'm monitoring several risks, and one of them is the inflation risk. Um, and I'll talk about the risk, but basically, because inflation is a problem, and more importantly, the dollar is because the U.S. is becoming irrelevant, right? And then the dollar is going to start dropping. Again, I'm not saying tomorrow, but if you don't do anything, it's going to be an issue. Then you need to tie the currency to something stable, stable coin, gold, Bitcoin, anything, right? Because as far as the dollar is concerned, you could print, you could bring as much money as you want, and that's what the Fed is. That's what the U.S. is good, because they have a reserve currency, and that is excellent to have a reserve currency, because you could print as many dollars as you can and as you want, and it becomes better and better. So the thing is, and this is a danger also, because don't forget, I mean, gold is gold, okay? But crypto and all of these other things, what are they really? We have supported the world, now reaping the non-benefits. Yeah, I mean, so what's going to happen now is you need to be able to anchor the currency on something, because they're concerned that eventually, you know what, nobody's going to want the dollars. Don't forget, there is BRICS out there that is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and that's a problem. And as BRICS becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, then what's going to happen is they're not going to need the dollar. They don't need the dollar. How long is that going to last? That's a question. And unfortunately, what we don't want to happen is, everyone to just shift over and start doing business by themselves. And unfortunately, these are the unexpected consequences of the way Trump is moving forward, right? Being so forceful, he's upsetting a lot of people everywhere, the U.S. administration, and they're saying, no, we're going to do business by ourselves anyway. Like Canada doesn't want to come to the U.S., Taiwan is upset, India is upset, China, forget it, Europe is upset, right? And you have to be careful the way everything is being framed for you, because they could frame in only the element of Trump. This is because it's Trump they're pissed off. This is the upset at Trump. And Trump. The only thing is, if somebody else comes after, and I will tell you, look at it. Even if it was Kamala, maybe she wouldn't have done it, but the person after that, but someone has to do something. It is not business as usual. You cannot keep borrowing more money, not producing anything, forgetting to do anything, not producing pharmaceutical, at some point, you become irrelevant. And then, of course, what you're noticing, and you have to be careful, is that for some reason you've got Russia and China that are basically not responding to Trump. They're not responding, meaning that they're, okay, let's talk, but I don't have to listen to you anymore. That's a problem. That means, and this is the issue, is that now you're going to have a different world that's being developed. So Trump has two jobs. The U.S. has two jobs. One, you have to stay relevant. And two, you have to prevent them from playing by themselves alone and start dealing with their own currency. I mean, don't forget when Biden weaponized the dollar, he weaponized the dollar with Russia. We say they'll never last. They're out of the SWIFT system. They have no money. Blah. They're gonna have to sell their oil, and they won't have the dollar anymore. Nobody's gonna buy the oil without the dollar. Blah blah blah. Guess what happened? He's still around. In fact, Russia has more tanks than the U.S. I mean, I don't want to get into the topic of war or anything like that, but I mean, this is a changing world, and this is why this channel is about. I want you to understand as much as possible the world that we're in, do subscribe to this channel, because what we do on a daily basis, we follow about 10, and stay with me for a second here, 10 items. The first one, obviously, and it's a big one, believe it or not, even though it sounds a bit trivial, is the Maxwell story. Okay, we need to understand what's happening with the Maxwell story. That is key. Why? Because she, believe it or not, depending on what she says or does not say, it will impact the MAGA movement. Why do we care about MAGA? Well, the reason you care about MAGA is because MAGA is the strength behind Trump. Trump is running out of time. I mean, physically, he's running out of time as well. And if he loses that power base, he will not be able to do all the things that he's doing the way he's doing. I'm firing this one, saying that to that one, going after the tariffs. No one is daring really pushing him too much. Right now, he's doing a humongous amount of pressure with the Fed. That's where you have dissents. That's where you have people not only dissenting, but leaving. And that could be a problem, right? So we'll see. And if she comes out and she says this and that, and these people and those people, and this what happened, of course, she's not a stupid woman. As you know, she's being moved to another facility right now, much better. It's called Club Fed. At least she said, but I'm not gonna talk to all these people if I don't know what is going on. I'm not gonna tell you all the things that I know, because then, yeah, sure, these people are gonna be indicted, but then you're gonna tell me that I'm responsible, and I'm gonna get another 20 years. And basically, Congress said, but we're not gonna give you immunity. Well, then I'm not talking. Then obviously, if you're the Democrats, you're gonna say, well, sure, you want her to. You're saying, let's have a talk, but you're not giving her immunity, so you know very well she's not going to talk. Therefore, you're not doing anything. So nothing is going to happen again. And that's a big topic, because MAGA is slowly, very slowly, but you could see, distancing itself from Trump. So Trump is becoming its own entity on his own. Be careful, because you don't want to use the MAGA people. What I mean by that is, and it's its own child. But if you lose MAGA, what's going to happen is then you don't have the power to do anything, because the senators and the representative are not going to follow you everywhere, because they don't want to lose the MAGA, and they want to be reelected. You have a job, but they don't have a job, so they don't, you know what I mean? So they want to keep it together as much as possible, but Trump is slowly losing it because of that woman. I mean, and also because of what he's doing with Ukraine, right? He gave weapons to Ukraine, and this is what happened, right? So Trump gave money to, well, he didn't give money. Trump basically sold weapons to Ukraine, right? And he's saying, well, I'm not giving anything. Although the MAGA people are saying, you know what? Yeah, but you're gonna need to use soldiers to explain to them how to use this, right? So it's not like we're out of the game completely. Yeah, well, they passed a bill, but now anymore. Now they're gonna be selling. But the reason you could see the pressure on MAGA and through to Trump, and that's the reason why, unfortunately, because he's got the pressure. So what he wants to do, he's going to go to Russia, and he's saying, okay, you know what? That's it. I'm not giving you 50 days, because I don't have 50 days with MAGA. MAGA is very powerful. Hopefully you can understand that, because that's what pushing Trump to basically go to Putin and say, okay, you got to stop whatever you're doing. In fact, I can't stop you, because obviously you don't listen to me anymore. So I'm going to go to India, who's buying oil from you, and I'm going to stop them from buying oil from you. I have to do it. I don't have the time. MAGA is behind me. I'm giving you 50 days, but it's ridiculous. I'm going to give you 12 days, and I'm going to do it even before that. And in fact, he insulted literally India not 2 days ago, and we'll have a video on that, because India is, Putin will never stop. But it's not so much that Putin will never stop. China will never stop. Is India going to be part of the fray? Because now you got a BRIC group that's not listening to you. And unfortunately, I don't know, the MAGA people are putting a lot of pressure on Trump, and Trump is pushing these things further, farther, faster, faster. And the only tool that he has really is the fact that the U.S. is strong. I am the U.S. 25% GP of the world. I know how much of that is that going to last and work, we shall see. But he has no choice, right? He's got to stop Putin. The thing is, we may realize very soon that these people don't care, right? You could say, well, Trump is going the right way or the wrong way. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. Maybe they don't care one way or the other. Maybe they do not care. Maybe they already have made up their mind. They're going to do business by themselves. They don't need the U.S. anymore, and it's over. Now, but that's not now. I mean, China needs the U.S. China needs to sell all the things that they're producing to the U.S. because if they don't, I mean, who's going to be buying such huge production? Unless they sell prices for half price. That could be a lot. He's in trouble. His whole country is running on war and he doesn't have a plan to pivot to one. Russia is now as a war economy. Russia, and that's a problem, right? Because I will tell you that NATO secretary basically repeated a warning. He has been in public at least 3 times this year that Western alliance is severely lagging behind Moscow on ammunition production. You may hear a lot of things about the U.S., the bombers, and blah, blah, blah. But when NATO tells you we are lagging in ammunition, what does he mean by that? Well, basically, the Washington expects Russia to produce 250,000 artillery shells monthly. The U.S. is only making 40,000. Yeah, but we have the submarine. But war not going to be fought like that going forward. Right? War going to be fought war going to be fought with missiles. And what's happening? Even the Western analysts themselves highlighting that the U.S. and NATO must pivot toward cost-effective, high-volume, small, unnamed system. That's what Russia is doing. And why are they doing it? Because they're at war. They know what works and they know what doesn't work. And I think the issue is that Russia is probably fighting the new war, and the U.S. is still trying to fight the old war with the big thing, but maybe it's not working. Yeah, the drone and the lasers. That's exactly what happened. Haven't you seen with well, look at the Ukraine thing. They're sending drones back and forth. Look what happened when Israel attacked Iran. They didn't send troops and tanks. They sent a bunch of planes. It's not so much a plane. They send the missiles. But it's all about missiles. Nobody wants to be damaged in their own country. So the further out you reach, the better off you're going to be. And that's what's happening. So be careful in terms of the ability of these people to actually contain this war. And that's a problem. So basically, you've got Maxwell, you've got the economy, which so far is okay, but it's slowing down a little bit, but it's not a big deal because it's only 4% unemployment. So, the stock market, you should be concerned because it is overvalued. The dollar is probably going to be weak. The tariff is a big mess, so we'll talk about that later on. Powell, and this is back to our topic, is that Powell is going to be leaving. He's going to be leaving because, quite frankly, it's a mess down there. Remember one thing, is that one of the governors, actually left. One of the governors of the bank, of the Federal Reserve, left her job ahead of schedule. Now, that tells me that there's something cooking within the Fed. That tells me that there's a concern that they may not, that they're being pressured. And Trump basically is going after all of the pillars of the tariffs, the Federal Reserve, but maybe to change things, you need to shake things up a little bit. Maybe you're shaking things up too much. China has gained a lot through all of this. Yes, China since 2000, basically what they've done is they've learned how to make a lot of things, and they've been making them and more and more and more. And it's what happened now, right? They basically don't need the U.S. Only need the U.S. really to sell the stuff that they've made, and that's a problem. So I would be concerned right now because the concern that we all have right now is that frankly what's going on at the Fed, and the Fed, believe it or not, historically was a very stable type of group, and she's leaving. And the BLS woman is leaving as well because what the work that she's done. And the question is, what is really going on with the economy? Well, the economy is doing okay, but it could be worse. But so far, as far as the job reports are concerned, we had 4% unemployment, more or less. You're losing all of the government jobs, and you're losing the industrial base. A lot of jobs are lost there, and but you're gaining jobs within the AI, and you're getting jobs in the health industry. The tariff are just finally starting through where they were going to actually hit the consumer. The question is, when is it going to hit the consumer? And this is why they will tell you that wait, you'll see it's going to happen. No, maybe it doesn't really, or it hits you in a way that it's not going to be a wave of. Don't forget, a lot of the same people that have been saying that, they also said that there's going to be a recession coming. And the US is extremely resilient. Now, this channel is about the black swan. So we're trying to figure out what are the risks in the system, what could potentially cause us to be in a lot of trouble. We need to understand where the risk is going to be, because for you, my subscribers, I mean, you want to know what kind of job I should have. So technically right now, I would stay away from anything having industrial, all these jobs, all these cyclical jobs, retail, all that are in a bit of a trouble. And I guess you want to focus more on jobs having to do with AI and services. But then that makes the push. We're still pushing towards services and all that, and away from industrial. But yet we're trying to bring the industrial. So you're going to have to decide whether or not Trump is going to be successful in bringing all of this industry back. And the way he's doing it, because he realized he doesn't have time to wait for them to come over and build a plant, he's asking them to invest in the US. And how he's doing that? Well, and this is where you could question the motivation and the way he's doing it. But basically, what he did is he told them, Japan to come over and invest. And they said, yeah, I'll invest 600 billion. I mean, 600 billion in loans. I'm not going to invest 600 billion in cash. So that's a little bit of a concern that maybe things are not going. Now, of course, one thing that Trump claims is that the job report was rigged. Well, I mean, he fired Erica, which was she was the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner, because only 73,000 jobs were added last month, almost all in healthcare and social assistance, basically. It was revised down for May and June by a combined 250,000. Combined 250,000 jobs we thought we had, we don't have. So he's basically, what he says is today's jobs number were rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad. The president basically complained. So they will tell you that the job of the BLS commissioner is a non-bipartisan post. And she was confirmed 86-8. But the truth is that the job numbers have become more volatile in recent years because of declining business survey response rate. People are not replying. Don't forget, we're not going out and interviewing everyone. It's a survey. It's similar to the problem political posters face getting representative samples. It helps to understand how the BLS produces monthly report. So basically what they do, they survey about 631 workplaces by a variety of media. They're going out and they send phone, web, fax. Many businesses don't respond every month. But the BLS continues to report the data, and it revised. The survey overall response rate has declined to 43% from 60%. So people are not answering. So the survey also doesn't fully account for business birth and death. The thing is, you're gonna say, yeah. So you're saying what? They don't. Oh, yeah, but you know what? Why does it happen to be on my watch that there's a huge amount of changes? And that's again where we are, right? We want to be in the middle, because they'll tell you, but this is so difficult to do it. It's a survey. Nobody answers a survey. Okay, but it happened to be in 2025 that we have such huge, ridiculous low number or volatile number, according to Trump. Why does it have to be on my watch, right? And why the Fed is not lowering the rates, right? And why all the Biden people, appointee, they want to keep the rates the same, and why they're not seeing the fact that the economy is slowing down. Right? And why, I think none of the Democrats voted for the big beautiful bill. So you see what I mean when I said that everything is just one way or the other. But you need to be in the middle, otherwise you're going to be swayed. I thought it came from unemployment offices. Yes, but it's not like somebody say, okay, well, how many people lost their jobs? Okay, let me go to no. They're surveying the companies. There's no way they could do that. So the numbers, you see, that's good, John, that you understand that this is not, it's a survey. That's what it is. So who knows what the real number is? And unfortunately, the way, and I see it all the time, for example, basically, the National Federation of Independent Business survey last month notably showed plans to create jobs and increase compensation falling to the 2016 level of the slow-growing Obama economy. Most Americans give Trump low marks on the economy in contrast in the first term. Many employers are doing mass layoff. Hiring has slowed to a trickle. Nurses, doctors, and construction can find jobs, but few others can. Unemployment has climbed more among most teens and new college grad. Right? So what is Jerome Powell doing? What is he waiting for? Why isn't he lower the rates? Because we live in a polarized society. We're extremely polarized. Even the news is polarized. Where you get some news, or some kind of discussion where you could see, well, where are we exactly, right? What happens if next month number are even worse? Now, of course, they're going to say, now that you're changing this woman, even though she did the best she could, and it's very difficult because no one answers the voting. Now, if the numbers are worse, what are you going to do? But if the number are good, people are going to say, well, of course the number are good because you falsify the numbers now. Can't win. You can't win either way. But at least you need to know what's going on, that at least you need to say, okay, you need to do like the Black Swan author, which is Taleb Nassim, who basically basically said the same thing as the greatest philosopher of all time, which is Socrates. And Socrates said the following. He said, I get up in the morning, more or less, and I know that I do not know anything. You need to know that, because if you know that you don't know, at least you're aware that there's always a black swan lurking. And in this case, there's a lot of situation. Of course, you could say it's somebody's fault, it's this other person's fault, right? But at the end of the day, when they call you in the office and you're fired, hey, nobody's going to care about that. And I want to prepare my subscribers into three ways, actually. I want you to know the risks. And these are the ones that I've been talking about, the 10 that I keep talking about, and every week every day we'll talk about a new one and understand it. Then I want to make sure that whatever job you have or whatever you're thinking of doing, that it's in line with some of the risks that we're seeing. For example, healthcare is always a safe place to be. Government work, be careful. Be careful right now, okay? AI, be careful in the sense that make sure that your job is not too close to, doesn't mean quit today, but be aware. Also be aware that we don't have a recession in the U.S. because then you keep hearing, recession, inflation, recession, stagflation, stagflation. That's what they're going to keep telling you. The stagflation. Well, okay, first, I'm not seeing anything in terms of the inflation number, and second, I'm not seeing anything at all in the economy. The GDP is up 3%. But I think because they know people don't understand what's happening, they're trying to sway. And frankly, I could make an argument on both sides. For example, I could tell you that this is bad that you fired this woman because, quite frankly, you know what? There's a lot of people, I mean, this is based on survey. People don't answer the survey, so it's very difficult to understand what's happening, you know what I mean? But I could also say that, and she makes all these mistakes now. As I'm trying to put this whole place together, that's when you're telling me that I just lost 250,000 jobs. Now, of course, if you would, and listen to this one, if I would have known that in May and June and you had reported 250 less thousand jobs, maybe the Fed would have had a tougher time to say, I don't want to change the rates. It'll be much more difficult because then you only have small amount of people job created. So you're keeping the jobs up. So the Fed could say, look, I'm not going to lower rates. It's okay. Only if we have problem with employment. We had a problem with employment where you didn't know, and now we know. But of course, you didn't lower the rates, and now I got to wait another month. And this is important for you to understand. It's not like you just lower the rates and raise the rate and everything happens right away. It takes 12 months at least for the impact to be seen. This is important for you. Because if the economy is actually starting to slow down and you don't do anything with the rates and you wait until August, the impact of that rate cut is not going to be seen for at least a year. And sometimes even longer, depending on the industry, it's a problem. We need to really make sure we understand everything that's happening. Because the businesses have been exiting it. Ford and GM have eaten lots and lots of tariffs. Yes. So if you work for the auto industry right now, of course they have eaten the tariffs. Why did they eat the tariffs? They ate the tariffs because they don't want to raise the prices. Suppose you're going to buy a car, and that's going to make things worse for everyone because now especially in cars are a very large item. Now, having said that, I will tell you that other industries have started to raise. For example, there's been a survey recently where Amazon has been raising prices a lot, quite a bit actually. But the thing is, you don't see it. You didn't see it, right? You didn't see. You see it, but frankly, it's not such a big deal. It's just something used to cost $2.50, and now it's costing $3. I could afford another 50 cents, can I? Yeah, you could afford it, but unfortunately, it's a lot more. So that is the concern that you need to have because that's going to be impacting you quite a bit going forward. The president has his own stuff ordering in place, but jobs and growth don't look so good. Well, it is slowing down. The point is, how far down are we going to go? That's a question, okay? And of course, this whole thing about the manufacturing, and the economy shed 11,000 manufacturing jobs in July, following a loss of 26,000 in May. And the ISM fell again to 48, which is below 50. Of course, they're blaming on the crackdown on migrant workers. Foreign-born workforce has fallen by 1 million since Mr. Trump took office. And the National Foundation of American Policy, a non-partisan think tank, says immigrants accounting for over half of the workforce increase in each of the 3 decades. So how much of these jobs and growth slowdown owes to Mr. Trump tariffs? It's hard to say. That's the point. It's hard to say anything. But when it's hard to say, you could say anything, and then you could go both ways. And that's a big problem. So the overall, what's happening is that we are slowly migrating away from a from an industrial production kind of kind of industry to more of a service industry. We are slowly losing our part in terms of the amount of people that we are seeing working in factories. We are losing a lot of the what's going on with what's going on in the industries, what's going on with the health, medicine. The most of what we have is going down a bit. Now, of course, the U.S. is still very strong, and this is where Trump comes in, and he wants to do his thing. He wants to fight it, and he will continue to fight to do it. But is it being successful or not? That's a question. And now you have a Federal Reserve chairman that resigns. Governor Adriana Kugler left. Not only didn't she resign, she did not vote. Now, these are, I wish I could, and I think I'm reaching some of you, that you need to understand the implication of such thing, right? This is a big topics because the Fed chair left. And right now, the estimation, and I'm pretty sure that the Fed himself is going to quit. He is going to quit because he has no choice, because, frankly, he's becoming a puppet. He has no validity right now. Why doesn't he have any validity? Because, frankly, half of the board is going to be against him. And that's a problem. That's always a problem. So the economy itself is slowing down, potentially with inflation, potentially without not. And the big question is, is this the right approach? Is Trump using the right approach by coercing, pushing, tugging, and doing all these things to all these people? Is that actually working? How are you going to know if any of this is working? Yes, it's working because we're collecting $300 billion. Let's find out, but I believe that the U.S. is on track to collect quite a bit of money. And very recently, Trump is actually going after the pharmaceutical products. Pharmaceutical products are very expensive, and you need to know why. Because, in the U.S., and don't forget, the stuff sold, this is made overseas, by the way. It's coming here, and it's still expensive. So somebody's making some sort of money. And also, you need to realize that most of these people are making money, and Trump basically sent out a letter, and that's another battle that he has, asking them to lower their prices. And he signed an executive order to lower drug prices. But can he actually lower the drug prices? He signed an executive order. I'm lowering the prescription drug, directing his administration to craft a policy that tie U.S. drug prices to what other countries pay. I don't know if you've been to other countries, but it's very cheap. And can they do that? All right. If a drug company doesn't lower prices within 180 days, the order gives Kennedy and other authorities to propose rule and restriction on drug prices and imports. So basically, Kennedy is going to get involved. Executive order direct the U.S. Trade Representative and Commerce Department to take any appropriate action against unreasonable that suppress drug prices. The order doesn't specify whether price change would apply to Medicare or Medicaid, but still they're trying to say we need to do something with drug prices. So Trump, the administration is fighting all these fronts at the same time. And when you have a bunch of kids, you're not going to be happy with everyone, right? So basically, Trump is over here, he's over there, trying to fight with this one and this one, right? And what does it mean for you? How is that going to impact you? Well, it's going to impact you in many ways. I don't think this is salvageable. The U.S. is on a downward spiral. I didn't start with Trump, and it's not going to end with him. Anyone in America right now, if you can't get out, what do you... Wow, Benzo. Well, let's put it this way. You need to at least be aware of what is going on. Right? You need to be aware of what's going on, because you need to know, what trend. And when we're saying that the U.S., for example, is on its way down, what does that mean? Well, if you take a look, for example, at how long before the U.S. loses the what do you call the chip race, for example, right? How long is it going to take before the U.S. loses that race? It's not current losing, but it's falling behind in semiconductor in a big time, right? Basically, as of 2025, the global chip design is strong because of NVIDIA. Okay, the manufacturing of these things is only 12% of global capacity. The advanced manufacturing, less than 5%. R&D is robust, and the CHIP Act, for example, is helpful. But, how many years before the U.S. loses, right? Well, if there's no follow-through on the CHIP Act's time horizon, 3 to 5 years. China catches up in advanced nodes, because they're going to eventually take a look at what NVIDIA is doing and is going to duplicate it, 6 to 8 years. U.S. fabrication delayed or underused, 4 to 6 years. I mean, we're talking geopolitical disruption, Taiwan, immediate. Trump could lose, the U.S. could lose access to TMC overnight, revealing lack of onshore resilience. So you need to execute the CHIP Act. You need to have Intel, TSM, fab completion. And that's why, Trump went to Taiwan, for example, and said, well, what are you doing? You got to help me here. You got to help me bring the things over. Otherwise, this is not... the bottom line, the U.S. still leads in design software innovation, but without a full thought on fab investment and workforce scale up, the U.S. could lose its ability to independently produce leading-edge chips within 5 to 8 years. But at least something is happening, right? The administration is out there pushing and kicking and tugging, and it's working with most countries. I'm not so sure if it's working with Russia and China. And when I see that, I am concerned that these countries already decided that, you know what, we really could do with that. I don't really need you. Russia definitely not anymore. They've proven you cut everything from them. So how much longer that's going to last, that's a question. I don't think this is salvageable. Well, it is not salvageable right now. But who knows? Again, this is one view, right? But let's not get too pessimistic, because, hold on. We only have 4% unemployment. 1. 2, stock market is up. Right? Stock market is doing great. 3, you're going to have lower rates. You're going to have lower rates. Because that lady left, and this other guy is going to come in, or woman or whatever, from a Trump appointee, and he's definitely going to pick someone that's going to lower the rates. 4, countries are scrambling around. They say, whoa, we got to do something. Trump is serious. He is serious. 5, the war in Israel and Iran got stopped, right? There wasn't too much of a big deal here. 6, these NATO countries are spending money on their own, right? And 7, we're going to have lower rates. 8, Russia is still talking to the U.S. and is being very careful, and so is China. They're still talking to the U.S. They're still discussing, except now these are more even-Steven type of discussions. That's the difference. Unfortunately, in the process, you're kind of upsetting Canada and a bunch of other countries, but you don't make eggs. You don't make omelets without breaking eggs. So this week, Trump is going to appoint a Federal Reserve governor and labor statistics chief this week. Um, and it's moving fast. Of course, it's unprecedented when the fact that he fired the chair, but and the lady in charge of the BLS. But why not? I don't know what's going on out there. What are you seeing in terms of jobs? Are you seeing a weakening in the job market? I like to see that. Maybe you're from a particular industry. That's what we need to know. We need to know what potentially could happen because you are going to be impacted very soon by the drop in the actual rates, which should happen very soon. I mean, we're talking about the end of August, and that's fantastic. And most importantly, if I'm looking at what's going on right now for your benefit, the market is up. Of course, there's new deadline happening in the market right now, right? Basically, both commissioners are going to be gone. The new trade deadline looms on Thursday, when because it's the 8th, hefty levies are due to take effect in many countries. The stage is staged for last-minute negotiation. Why is Trump doing that? Well, Trump is doing that because he has no choice at this point. Switzerland, for example, got 39% tariffs, which is a lot, but it was ready to make a more attractive offer to the U.S. Meantime, the European Union said it would pause a 6-month retaliatory tariff it would have imposed on the U.S. Companies reporting earnings, including Palantir and McDonald's, about 2/3 had reported quarterly results on Friday. Of them, over 80% reported better than expected earnings per share, according to FactSet. So that's a lot of damage. So, end of story. This week we're going to have lots of topic to. We're going to discuss lots of interesting things. We're going to talk about the big pharmaceutical confrontation with Trump. We're going to be talking AI, how it reshapes the economy. We're going to talk about stagflation. We're going to talk about the tariff showdown with Switzerland, and also we're going to talk about India, which is very important. These are all important topics because what's happening, I think the world, believe it or not, is changing and shifting, and you need to understand it in a way that it's kind of in the middle, not one way or not the other. So the world is changing in a way. I mean, with India, I don't know. Basically, Trump said to Modi, "What are you doing? You don't make any sense. You should be working with me, and instead you're working for Russia, and but you're upsetting a very strong allies. So it's moving and shaping in ways that are changing the way we are, and you need to be aware of this. I mean, now we're going to have rates, lower rates, great, but please, by all means, we do not want any inflation because that's going to be a very difficult thing to manage. And so, where are we with this? So we shall see. And I will see you again tomorrow with some much different topics.